Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Timeless Sagas, the channel where we explore the depths of human history and embark on thrilling adventures through time. I am your faithful guide, the historian extraordinaire, and today, we're delving into a rather somber, but incredibly significant topic, the history of suicide. But before we begin, I want to issue a trigger warning for those who may find this subject matter distressing. If you are struggling with mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, please seek help from a mental health professional or call a helpline. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. So, like it or not, suicide has been a part of the human experience since time immemorial. The act of intentionally taking one's own life has been viewed through various lenses throughout history, from being considered a noble act of sacrifice to a blasphemous crime against God. Today, we will explore the different ways societies have understood and dealt with suicide, and how these perspectives continue to shape our modern understanding of this complex and tragic phenomenon. Let's start by taking a trip way back in time, to the ancient world. In many ancient societies, suicide was not only accepted but even encouraged in certain circumstances. For example, in ancient Rome, suicide was considered an honorable way to avoid shame or dishonor, especially for high-ranking officials and military leaders. A famous example is that of Cato the Younger, who took his own life after being defeated by Julius Caesar to avoid falling into enemy hands. Similarly, in ancient Greece, the philosopher Socrates chose to end his life by drinking a cup of poisonous hemlock, rather than being subjected to the humiliation of public execution. The Greeks believed that a person's life belonged to the individual, and they had the right to end it if they deemed it necessary. Suicide was even romanticized in some Greek tragedies, such as the love story of Ajax and Tecmessa, where the hero's suicide is portrayed as a noble act. The ancient Japanese had their own version of suicide as an honorable act, known as seppuku or harakiri. Seppuku was a ritualistic form of suicide performed by samurai warriors to atone for their failures or to restore their family's honor. The samurai would disembowel themselves with a short sword, and a trusted friend or relative would then decapitate them to expedite their death and minimize their suffering. This practice was eventually banned in the late 19th century, but the concept of honor-bound death has persisted in Japanese culture. Now, let's switch gears and examine suicide from a religious perspective. In the major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, suicide is generally considered a sin. This belief stems from the idea that life is a gift from God, and to take one's own life is to reject that gift and defy the Creator. For example, in Christianity, suicide is considered a mortal sin, meaning that those who commit suicide are believed to be condemned to eternal damnation. The Catholic Church has softened its stance on this issue in recent years, recognizing that individuals who take their own lives often suffer from severe mental distress and should be treated with compassion and understanding. In Islam, suicide is also strictly forbidden, as it is considered a violation of the sanctity of life. Those who commit suicide are believed to be punished in the afterlife by repeating the act of suicide for all eternity. However, it's important to note that not all instances of self-sacrifice in Islam are considered suicide. Martyrdom in the name of Allah, as seen in some interpretations of jihad, is seen as an honorable act that guarantees a place in paradise. From a Hindu and Buddhist perspective, suicide is viewed as a grave mistake, as it interferes with the natural cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. According to the doctrine of karma, taking one's own life will result in negative karmic consequences, potentially leading to a lower rebirth in the next life. In some cases, suicide can even lead to rebirth in the realm of hungry ghosts, a state of constant suffering and insatiable desire. Now that we've covered some of the ancient and religious perspectives on suicide, let's fast forward to the Enlightenment. The 18th century French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau was one of the first to break from religious dogma and argue that suicide could be a rational decision in certain circumstances. He believed that individuals should be free to choose their own destiny, including the option to end their lives if they so desired. The 19th century German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer took this idea a step further, arguing that suicide was not only a rational choice but also a potential escape from the inherent suffering of life. Schopenhauer viewed life as a constant struggle driven by insatiable desires and that suicide was a legitimate means to end this struggle. Despite these philosophical arguments, suicide remained a criminal offense in many Western countries until the mid-20th century. In England, for example, suicide was considered a crime punishable by the forfeiture of the individual's property and the desecration of their body. This practice was only abolished in 1961, with the passage of the Suicide Act, which decriminalized suicide and shifted the focus to providing support and treatment for those at risk. In the United States, suicide has never been a federal crime, but individual states have had their own laws criminalizing the act. By the 1990s, most states had repealed these laws, recognizing that criminalization only served to stigmatize and isolate those who needed help the most. Today, the topic of suicide remains a complex and controversial issue. While we now have a greater understanding of the mental health issues that often contribute to suicidal behavior, many societies still struggle to find effective ways to support and treat those who are at risk. Additionally, the debate surrounding physician-assisted suicide and the right to die with dignity has brought the question of individual autonomy and the ethics of self-determination back to the forefront of public discourse. As we can see, the history of suicide is a multifaceted tapestry of cultural, religious, and philosophical perspectives that continue to shape our understanding of this tragic and complex phenomenon. By examining this history, we can better appreciate the diverse ways in which societies have grappled with the question of self-inflicted death and, perhaps, gain some insight into how we can better support those who struggle with suicidal thoughts today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the history of suicide. As always, please like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Sagas for more fascinating explorations into the depths of human history. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind and a curious heart as we continue our quest to uncover the timeless sagas that define our shared human experience. Farewell, brave adventurers.